will have 90 seconds to initially respond to questions. We'll be rotating through the order, and then there will be 60 seconds for the subsequent response. So the first question for main Dowling. Each of you have expressed that you are passionate about issues facing students. What is one issue that is likely to keep you up at night and get you out of bed in the morning?
Thank you for that question, Rebecca. For me specifically, it has to do with teaching and learning. So obviously I come from a Con Ed background, so I'm very passionate about education on this campus. For me, teaching and learning is something that affects every single student, whether you're an undergraduate or a graduate student. It's about making sure that our education here at Queen's is ideal and perfect. Obviously, it can be a very difficult challenge to spark institutional change, but I'm up for that challenge and I'm very passionate about it. It gets me up in the morning, ready to go, ready to say, what can we do to make our classrooms better, make our exams better, make our assessments better, and make opportunities better for all of our students. Thank you.
I think for me, I would have to say that it's definitely student autonomy. That's because it really touches on everything that we do at Queen's. I think right off the bat, when we get here, we have a support network, like Student Run Orientation Week, and that has such an impact on every single student. I think we need to be addressing the risks, but really maintaining the values and making sure those values serve every student at Queen's, keeping the best aspects of our traditions and not just allowing them to be dismantled, because we can't get that value from anything else. Student engagement on this campus is so important, and I want to defend it.
Something that, as rector, would keep me going day in and day out is making sure that every student is getting their questions answered. And I'm not just talking about in courses. I'm talking about what makes us all different. So by a concept of calling in versus calling out, we are able to ask questions to each other and get our questions answered in a way that is civil and that promotes learning. So I'm talking about what makes us all different. I don't want Queen's students to experience a campus where they're afraid to ask questions for fear of saying the wrong thing. And yes, it is everyone's responsibility to educate themselves, but furthermore, I want to create an environment where people can ask questions that they don't think that they're supposed to have. Because the more we're asking questions and challenging each other and learning, the more we are able to understand each other and understand where everybody is coming from. Thank you.
So an important issue to myself that I've suffered from as well is mental health and ensuring that students are able to access resources because as a Don or as living in residence, I've had experience of mental health issues and I've had training, but even with all that training, I haven't had that opportunity to sometimes really support myself. So ensuring that students, my family members have that opportunity to really access resources, but really have the opportunity to just use resources is important. And raising an awareness about having resilient health is really important to me. And so that's what I would want to focus on. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add, or we can move on? So for Rick, the rector is the third office of the university and represents all students, graduate, professional, and undergraduate, on many different bodies. As you are all undergraduate students, how will you work effectively with graduate students and represent and advocate for their success?
So this year, we've had an exceptional relationship between the AMS and the SGPS. I heard that from the SGPS themselves. They've been able to work very closely, and I think it goes to show that they don't, in the past they butted heads, but that's not necessarily how it should be. There's a lot of common interests. Grad students definitely need to get more access to mental health counselors. There's an article running in the journal how there's only one counselor for 4,000 students, and they can benefit from working very closely. So this year in the Engineering Society, we tried to pair grad students with design teams, and that's so great because it gives students, younger students, the insights, and it gives grads a sense of mentorship. There's so much value, so I think that can be achieved by liaisoning very closely, following up, and making it very clear that grad students' issues will be heard and will be taken up. Because as a unified front, we're so much more effective. So I think grad students working with the rector, the AMS, and the SGPS together would really accomplish a lot.
I wish to work with the SGPS in a number of ways. The first one is in the general theme of transition. So I have quite a few points for undergrad, but for graduate students specifically, transitioning into grad school and also transitioning out. So while they're in grad school, there can be a lot of issues with supervisors, and a lot of the times they might not know where to go. So I wish to work with the SGPS to make sure that students are aware of their resources, and I wish to do this through something called the Resource Hub. So this will be an interactive way of connecting students seeking help to those providing it. So this can be anything from academic grievances to mental health concerns. Additionally, my writing is not that great. I want to work with the SGPS to make the rector a presence and to let grad students know that the rector serves them as well, because a lot of grad students don't know that. So by being present, by approaching clubs and groups of graduate students, and just letting them know that the rector can be a non-judgmental, confidential resource for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And so the way that I hope to really be an effective advocate for the SGPS and graduate students is by working as a liaison with SGPS and AMS to ensure that there is better involvement between both graduates and undergraduates to build those relationships, especially when it comes to student groups. But as well, I will improve the office by holding open public forums, and as well as holding office hours and encouraging graduate students to come and visit me to talk, as well as having clear, concise communication with SGPS on a constant basis to listen to what students have to hear. The other day, when I was talking to a law student, I actually heard from that law student that the university is planning to close down the daycare center. And if students are not able to get that support and really to ensure that they're able to get their best education, how can we possibly call ourselves a family? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So I come from a very unique perspective as a Con Ed student. I've actually already taken graduate program courses through my BA. So I do come in with a very unique perspective, having been enrolled in undergraduate and graduate courses. Obviously, I would act as a liaison between AMS Assembly and SGPS Assembly, which the rector sits on. But very importantly, I think it's important to advocate for the communication between graduate and undergraduate students in the classroom setting, between TAs and their students. Because obviously, this is the time when undergraduate and graduate students come face to face. So it's important that when it comes to training of TAs and advocating for their needs to prepare them for the professional world, that they are ready and are important, and that all their needs are addressed, because obviously they come from a very different perspective. Daycare is a very interesting and very large concern for graduate students, as well as further distance housing, because very often graduate students are further away from the university district. So it's important to advocate for those needs by communicating strongly with the SGPS Executive and Assembly. Thank you.
For Julie, one of you will become one of two undergraduate students who sit on the board of trustees, a governing body where many major financial decisions of the university are made. How will you effectively advocate for all the student interests on the board of trustees?
Thank you very much for the question. The best way that I can advocate for all students' interests, or even know what all students' interests are, is to ask them. So as rector, I plan to make myself very present. I plan to go to faculty meetings, and I plan to approach clubs, and in person as well as over email. me, it comes down to communication, and it comes down to being a presence. And that's how I will understand what they need so that I can advocate for them and help them get what they need. Thank you very much.
So how will I effectively advocate for students' interests on the Board of Trustees? Well, again, increasing and improving the transparency of the Office of the Rector by remodeling the Rector's website to make it more interactive with students, giving them the ability to send me and tell me how they are doing, as well as through the public open forums, ensuring that students are able to talk to me so that when I can provide a clear, concise voice to administration at the Board of Trustees, I'm doing that because I've listened to students. And by listening, that's ensuring that you are able to effectively advocate for all students. But more importantly, as well, to ensure this, what I hope to do is really work with many student groups and clubs to ensure that I'm also representing their voice, but then as well providing a clear voice from administration to them so that there's a two-way communication. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So for me, it's very much about opening the conversation and allowing students to know that the Rector is a resource by approaching them and getting myself out there. Personally, I plan to be actively involved in Orientation Week, getting students involved and letting them know about the office from their very first week here at Queen's. Specifically from an administrative level, it would be about communicating actively with AMS Assembly and SGPS Assembly, with all the Faculty Society presidents and executives to know what students need. It's also extremely important to actively collaborate with the undergraduate student trustee and the graduate student trustee to get their opinions on what their constituents want. It's about opening that communication and constantly having that conversation about what students need and what students deserve. Thank you.
I absolutely agree that the lines of communication need to be kept open and that the Rector only has credibility if they're representing students and communicating very closely and hearing all their issues. One thing I want to note, though, is that the Rector doesn't have any hard power, and they don't even have a way to do surveys currently, like the AMS can, where they can get real constituent feedback and advocate based on that. So it's really important that the Rector wields their power well when working with administrators. And one other thing I want to note is that the Board of Trustees is a corporate body. They don't listen to political or ideological arguments. I would always be pragmatic and practical and address the risks that the university faces, address things very practically in order to actually be able to achieve something for students.
Would anyone like to? So for camp, when working in this job, you do not have a supervisor and you have agency to create your own hours and expectations. Explain the commitment you envision making to this office and what expectations you will set for yourself. What should students expect from you?
Thank you very much. So, explaining my commitment and envisioning what I plan to do with this position, well, again, what I really hope to do is by holding those open office hours and really holding open those public forums, I really hope that gives students the opportunity to really interact with me. But then outside of that, ensuring that I can have self-care, take time for myself, because that's also very important. And we know that this is a very taxing position, but we want to make sure that if myself is able to be good mentally, I can also support others. And what should students expect from me? Well, expect that whenever they talk to me, I'm going to give them my full undivided attention. And that I will always be a support for them and always advocate for them. Thank you.
Thank you again for the question. So for me, I currently sit on AMS Assembly as an Arts and Science representative, so I have a weird love of policy. So for me, going into the position into the future, I would like to formulate the policy and formally create a policy for the Rector, because right now, we only have the charter that originally created the position, so it's important to properly define what are the roles of the Rector, what are they supposed to be doing When it comes to advocating for students, the way I see the role and the way I hope students see the role goes back to the motto of the position. The motto is to be a leader and a servant. So the rector for me is very much an opportunity to lead students in a way that is equitable and a way that allows for a greater diversity. But at the same time, I plan to be a servant, advocating for the needs of students. If a student comes and talks to me, it is my job to work with them and to serve them as an opportunity to make sure that their issues and concerns are addressed at the university. Thank you.
It's really interesting how the rector can do anything they want with the office, in a way, because it's poorly defined. But that's allowed past rectors to do things like have open office hours and be a support for students who fall through the cracks. I think that's amazing, and I really want to continue that, having heard how much of an impact it has. One other thing I really want to do, though, is inform the students of the issues and really bring it to them. So holding town hall meetings where I get feedback, things like that, I think that would be really great, and I look forward to it.
Some things that I expect for myself and expectations that I would have for myself in this role is again to be a presence. So to sit on faculty assemblies with a goal of once a semester, to make myself known and to hopefully get the question asked less, what is a rector and what can they do for me? Expectations, things that people can expect from me are that I will be open to ideas, so fluidity in my ideas and collaboration, as well as following up with students. So if a student comes to the office of the director with any concern, I promise to follow up with them after I direct them to somebody who can help them maybe more than I can. It's really important to know that you have somebody looking out for you. So as director, I promise to follow up with students in times like these. Additionally, balance is really important to me. So this is something that I would really strive to accomplish, is having a balance between being present with students as well as working hard with administration to form relationships. Thank you.
All of your platforms, in one way or another, discuss the idea of transparency within the office of the rector. Why do you believe your plan for transparency is the best?
Thank you so much for that question. It's a very interesting question. Specifically with regard to my platform and transparency, it's about formalizing again. So going back to creating a policy and formalizing a budget for the office of the rector. Again, it's very up in the air what the position is supposed to do. So for me, it's formalizing that in terms of what the position does as a form of transparency. As well, I plan to create a rector Instagram account to very much bring the face of the rector and the office of the rector to students as a way of recognizing the day-to-day activities of the office. So understanding transparency in that sense. So students are aware of what the office looks like. In addition, it's having those open conversations. And I know it's been talked about a lot, but continuing those conversations with AMS executives and SGPS executives, as well as the various faculty societies, to make sure that I am doing the best job possible within the position and being a resource to students on campus. Thank you.
With regards to transparency, I really want to educate students and bring the issues to them, but I also really want to bring the context of issues. For example, Fall Reading Week is a really interesting idea, but I have serious concerns about its implementation with the reduction of pre-exam study days. So I think focusing on the context and really making all that available would do a lot for the office of the rector in explaining the role and what they can do for students. Also, ideas like outside of office hours will really make it more accessible, make it more comfortable for regular student voices to come to the rector and share their thoughts with him or her.
I believe that my plan for transparency is best because I am relatable. I know what students need to know, and I know what they want to know, and I know how to communicate it with them so that it's easy to understand if they don't understand the jargon of sitting on assemblies or all the abbreviations that we use here at Queen's. Another area of transparency for me is communication via Facebook. So communicating when I'll be in my office hours, and keeping those up to date and
So the reason why I think that my platform provides me with the best opportunity to be transparent is because, well, it gives me an opportunity to apply what I've learned as a Don and residents to the position and really support students and be a resource for students and really have those face-to-face communications in order to ensure that when I am providing advocacy for them to administration, I'm providing a clear, concise voice. But more importantly as well, it gives me an opportunity to work with the various student groups and clubs on campus that really makes Queens amazing and incredible, because 220 student clubs and groups, that's amazing. But yeah, that's what I really hope to do, and that's why I think it really gives me the best opportunity. Thank you.
For Rector, the conversation on sexual assault on campus is one that as students and leaders we cannot ignore. As Rector, how will you work with students and university administration to ensure that a full range of support services are available on campus for all affected by sexual assault?
I think the university really needs to step up its game there and provide more services. Right now we have the SHRC, which is able to take anybody to KGH, to the sexual assault center there, but it's really not fair to students to not be providing more. So really advocating for those on that all the time. I'd make it a priority. And yeah.
The first thing that I would do is consult with groups that already exist, such as the implementation team. A lot of groups are already currently working on this. So I would take a look at the climate survey and the feasibility analysis that they have going. Where could the sexual assault center go? How could it be staffed? What would it be under? Asking questions like this and collaborating with these groups. Secondly, I would make it very clear to administration that this is a priority of mine, so that they know where I'm coming from when I offer certain opinions. Thirdly, I would create a campus that is comfortable talking about this, because in order for administration to care about it, students have to care about it, and students have to be educated on the issues and know why it's important and who sexual violence affects. And lastly, I would advocate to the board with every single chance that I get, because I know that this is extremely important for survivors of sexual assault to have somewhere to go on campus that's dedicated to helping them. There are services that exist that can help survivors get help. It's off campus, and I think it's really important for this, so that it's on campus and it's dedicated solely to helping survivors. Thank you.
So, as Julia said, working with the resources that we currently have is very important, such as the Sexual Health Resource Center, and ensuring that students are supported. But the Queen's Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Working Group has provided a 120-page document that I've read, crazy enough, but has laid out 11 objectives and 32 recommendations to ensure that students on campus feel supported and have the resources when it comes to sexual assault, because 1 in 4 on campus have experienced sexual assault, experienced it. And so ensuring that these recommendations are implemented correctly, or working with administration and student groups to, have a crisis center, have enough counselors, 4 counselors that were recommended, and as well as changing the culture to reduce the stigma around sexual assault and providing education such as bystander training that we get as Dons. I think that is how we can really ensure that working together, we can create a campus that is better for all. Thank you.
With regards to sexual assault and violence prevention on campus, it's of course, I'm pretty sure, a very important issue for all 4 of us up here. For me personally, it's very much, again, going to all those resources that currently exist, such as the working group, SHRC, as well as the AMS Social Issues Commission, which is a great resource to talk about this topic. With regards to creating a sexual violence support center,
how would you ensure that you are bringing other students into the work you do?
Thank you for the question. I would do this by, again, consulting clubs and asking students how I can bring them into the work that I do. It's really important to know where students are coming from, and a lot of clubs don't know that the rector can be a resource for them if they're having trouble with whoever it is they're dealing with administratively. It's really important for them to know that the rector can be a resource. Additionally, I think having opportunities like a first-year intern or assistant are really, really great ways to bring opportunities into the office of the rector to help students understand what the rector does, and hopefully it will promote them into further leadership opportunities of their own. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And so the most important position, the most important role as rector is to advocate for students. In order to advocate for students, you must listen. And by listening, through public open forums, as well as remodeling an interactive website, is one way in which I hope to work with students. But more importantly, in my platform, I have a lot of ideas in terms of improving accessibility to student resources. And the only way that I can ever do this is through my favorite word, teamwork. Because teamwork is how we get anything done, and by working together, we can make that difference. Thank you.
Although it may seem that I'm alone up here as a candidate, I'm really not. I have the support of a fantastic team, so obviously going through the selection process, I've had the opportunity to work with my fellow students, so shout out to them, they're off in the back corner there, thank you so much. With regards to bringing students into the position in the future, all of the topics within my platform are obviously things that are university-wide, so it's about having conversations with people who are experts in the field. Specifically, I'm looking forward to creating an online training program for sexual and gender diversity. Obviously, I'm not a specific expert on that, so I'm going to be looking to the Human Rights Office, the Social Issues Commission, the SHRC, as resources to expand on that specific point. With regards to my entire platform, it's very much about finding students on campus who are passionate about the same things that I am, and have them brought into the conversation to make sure that we can enact positive change here on campus. Thank you.
The rector's role can definitely be a very lonely one. They are physically isolated, and they also shouldn't be implanted on the inside of the AMS or the SGPS. They're kind of at arm's length for a reason. But also, the Board of Trustees is confidential, and recently students were even disinvited from a session that the board has after became very popular for students to attend, sort of like a networking session. So that was a concern for lots of students. Mike Young brought that up, but I think there should be more opportunities for students to interact with people on the Board of Trustees. And also, student leaders should absolutely be coordinating lobbying efforts. So the Student Senate Caucus is a great resource there. The student senators should definitely be working collaboratively with the rector, and the rector should be listening at all faculty societies and AMS and getting their feedback on issues.
For camp. Though Queens is an amazing school and community, many different identity groups are marginalized and oppressed. Identify one such group that you believe to be particularly underrepresented, and discuss ways that you would seek to amplify those voices at the highest levels of government and in your day-to-day work.
Alrighty, so thank you very much for that question. And so one group that I see is underrepresented is, especially when it comes to our LGBTQ plus community. The reason for this is that I believe that for many of this community, they aren't able to celebrate who who they are, their gender, their sexual orientation on campus. And this is seen through, there isn't a whole lot of awareness about alt orientation week when it comes to the first couple weeks of classes. And so ensuring that we can bring in these educational resources and really advocating for them, because they're important to making sure that we can create an inclusive campus. And the way that I can work with them in my day-to-day work, well, I can go and listen to conversations such as Adequate, but then as well as working with many of the student groups and clubs such as the Aboriginal For Directions, the Human Rights Office, as well as Queers Issue Project and Loving Spoonful. And that's what I really hope to do. Thank you.
So I elaborated on this topic in my previous question, and the underrepresented group that I'm going to focus on is the LGBTQ+ community, mostly because I'm very excited to hopefully advocate for the creation of an online sexual and gender diversity training program. So obviously, Positive Space exists on campus, and it is a great resource for individuals on campus, but it's very much about bringing awareness to the broader Queens community, providing an opportunity for individuals, both students and faculty, to have training and to be brought into the conversation. As to what it would look like, for me, it seems very much the opportunity to discuss the alphabet soup of the different aspects of the community, as well as providing individuals who take the program resources on campus so they can direct both themselves and their peers in order to seek help and assistance. Although training might not be the ideal, very much it's about education and awareness and bringing attention to the community as to make sure that they're better represented and better understood on such a diverse campus. Thank you.
So I'm a hidden minority at Queens, and I found it very difficult at first to adjust to Queens. I discovered the diversity we have here working at Wacom in second year, but it's not always apparent at the surface. So I think one thing we could be doing for students of color is giving them more relatable resources. In my platform, I've addressed this. We currently have 2 cross-cultural counselors, and we should be getting them more. It's in the job description of counselors to be relatable, so having more resources for them will show that it's taken very seriously.
Thank you for the question. One group that on campus that I think needs to be better, their voices need to be better amplified, are the Indigenous folks on campus. So working alongside the Four Directions as well as the Aboriginal Students Association, and listening to their needs and listening to how I, as the rector, can give them what they need and properly help them. That being said, it's important to understand that one Aboriginal person or Indigenous person does not represent the needs of all Indigenous people. So it's really important that we are acting based on merit and equity as opposed to trying to accommodate one entire marginalized group. Thank you.
The rector is often the first to hear administrative contact about pressing and important student issues. How do you intend to balance the desire to be constructive and legal on a key point of contention with administration, such as non-academic misconduct, while making sure you firmly represent student interests?
Thank you for such a great question. When it comes to balancing the relationship between the administration and students, obviously the position of the rector comes back to representing the voice of the students. And it's balancing that voice with audit and risk and understanding how students at this university can be mitigated and how their safety is the number one concern. With regards to non-academic misconduct, it's very much about understanding the balance between the risks associated with it, but ensuring that it is both peer-mediated and restorative. Because when it comes to justice here at the university, I think it's fundamentally important that individuals are brought back into the university and brought back home to where they belong. Thank you.
I think I'll be able to accomplish that by always seeking to improve everything we have at Queens, such as non-academic discipline, and by approaching it positively. positively like that, we can give administration a voice and actually helping to ensure the sustainability of our initiatives, because they can really help with that. Things like degree school in engineering, we only have it because we've been able to adapt it. So we need to be adapting and we need to be working with administration. But I'd also hold firm and strong in student interests. I wouldn't allow myself to be intimidated. You can read about that in the journal over the years. It does happen, so a student leader has to be confident in standing firm for students and their interests.
So this question has a lot to do with my platform point on campus culture. So I touched on it a little bit before, but cultivating a campus of passion and integrity. So what this means for non-academic discipline is that it's really important to find a balance of the integrity part. We know that we're passionate about a non-academic discipline system. It's important to act with integrity and take responsibility. It's also important, and I will strive towards transparency from the board. It's really hard to know how to act responsibly. I shouldn't say that, but it's a lot easier to know what acting responsibly looks like when we know exactly what the board needs from us. So it goes hand in hand. The board's transparency and students' responsibility makes for an effective non-academic discipline system. Thank you.
Alrighty, so how do I intend to balance the desire to be constructive and collegial? Well, the thing about this is, again, listening to students and having that opportunity to have those face-to-face interactions as well as the interactive website is very good. And that gives me the opportunity to have a clear, concise voice when advocating. But as well, one thing is, again, my favorite word, teamwork. With teamwork, that doesn't mean that you have to give up your voice in order to work as a team. When you have teamwork, that means that you are working with one another to ensure that all parties have the opportunity to achieve what they all set out to do. And that's what I have hoped to do through my position as rector, working as a team to ensure that all voices are heard. Thank you.
Okay, we're actually going to take a quick 5-minute break. I would just ask if you have questions, you can tweet them at us using the hashtag #QRector or direct message the AMS Elections and Referendum team on Facebook. We're just going to take a quick 5 to 10 minutes.
start? So the first question is, what is your favorite Queen's tradition and why? I guess this question is for everybody.
It goes without saying that the best Queen's tradition is student engagement, but my favorite one is the Grease Bowl. If you ever attended, you know why. It's an amazing experience. We get so close, being crammed in there together. You should really get a ticket and check it out.
My favorite Queen's tradition is doing the oil thigh. As a camp person, I understand the importance of coordinated dance moves and singing in unison. Thank you.
I'm just messing with you guys. But yes, the oil pie is also my favorite Queen's tradition. But it's because that gives us the opportunity to have one voice as one family throughout the entire world. Thank you.
For me, it would have to be jackets and tans, mostly because one of my favorite things to do over the winter break is go home and see photos up on Overheard of, look what I saw across the world, and having those relationships with alumni and being able to communicate with them simply by wearing a piece of clothing. It's absolutely fantastic.
All right. Go to the next question. All right. What is your happy place on campus and why?
Breadsticks and sangria. I mean, Queen's Pub.
Coffee, where is the coffee? Someone give me some coffee, please. Please, coffee. Cobra, I really love Cobra.
Mine's a little bit more remote. It's the phytochrono greenhouse up in Bioside. I 10 out of 10 would recommend going up to the 5th floor, especially during winter. Super warm, tropical, breeze, and just walking around with plants. It's very relaxing, and nobody goes up there. Well, apparently all of you are going to go up there now. Thank you.
I work at the tea room as a barista, and it's a very cozy spot on campus. It's really nice and relaxing. I like to go there.
This should be an interesting one. You have 30 seconds to summarize your Queen's experience thus far.
How can you possibly use words to describe the Queen's experience? Because what has happened here, or what happens here, what goes on here, goes beyond what I could have ever imagined. Because this place, this family that we have, is incredible, and I love every single moment of it. Because this is where I feel at home. Thank you.
Mine's going to be very simple. It's very much just, oh. That's my student experience. The oil thigh, a great summation of what makes this university fantastic. Thank you.
I grew up moving every 2 years, and English is my third language. My Queen's experience has very much been an extension of that. In the first year, I wasn't too involved, but in the second year, I worked at Walk Home. Now I'm involved with the Green Design team. I'm the chair
the last of our sort of fun round questions. When your term as rector is complete, what do you want your lasting legacy to be?
For me, my legacy would be very much that, of course, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for all of us, is enacting change here at the university. Change is very much what the role of rector does. It's about bringing and advocating for those concerns. With regards to me, specifically, I would like to be known for making a large change in the teaching environment and the learning environment and the research environment, because they are fundamentals of what makes a university and what makes a student experience. Thank you.
I want to have steered the ship that is Queens in the right direction. So not letting go of the values of our traditions, but accepting that times change and looking forward and addressing the needs of the future.
On a more serious note, I want my lasting legacy to be one of a rector that is balanced. So one that is okay with having a little bit of fun every once in a while, one that represents students, one that is approachable, and one that can make change. Thank you.
What I want my lasting experience to be is where I've created a campus that is inclusive for all peoples. Because I want to ensure that anyone and everyone can come to Queens and feel like they are part of the Queens family. Because, again, as I've said before, individually we are good, but together, well, we are amazing. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to be going back to slightly more serious questions now. So I guess that one is sort of happening between the two. So the rector's term is 3 years. Looking at your platforms as they stand right now, what will be your first priority when taking office? And do you anticipate fulfilling your platform goals once your term ends?
So my platform talks about strained student resources, mental health and equity. Those are the really proactive ones where there's something like to be accomplished instead of just defending a tradition. And that is very long term. So I think just setting the right relationship with the university administration so that the student voice is heard in all our campus planning and all our resource planning, and that we get the priorities right, we invest in students and everything from mental health counselors to study space to our career center. That's what I want to do.
Several of my platform points are longer term projects, such as supporting the implementation of a sexual assault response and prevention center on campus. The first thing that I would do, if elected, is make it very, very clear that this is a priority of mine to the board and try and communicate those needs to the board. In the meantime, it's important that students are involved in this conversation as well. So in a more social way, starting conversations, getting students engaged, as well as participating in initiatives to get sexual violence conversations happening. Thank you.
So the very first thing that I would want to prioritize when going into the office is ensuring that we have the correct amount of resources and as well as visibility and accessibility to mental health resources. Because I have experienced mental health issues, and last year that was very apparent. And I had to have support, and so ensuring that we can work together to really increase the resources, advocate for increased resources, and accessibility and awareness of the resources that we have is important to me. Thank you.
My first priorities going into the office are the priorities of the students right now. So as of right now, the main priorities of students are the fall implementation of a fall reading week and the reconstruction of the non-academic misconduct system. Looking forward into fall reading week, it's important that students and faculty and administration look critically at fall reading week and make sure that it doesn't disrupt the integrity of orientation week or disrupt our pre-exam study days. With regard to non-academic misconduct, it's obviously going to be a priority with the results of and recommendations coming from the board at the beginning of the term in late May. So for me, that's an ideal priority, and it's a priority for students right now, so therefore it is a priority for me. Thank you.
Microphone is not particularly good, sorry. So some of the questions we have coming up have been submitted by various members of the Queens community through social media. This one says, over the last few years, even though we have seen the opening of 2 new residences, the Isabel, and many multi-million-dollar donations, some students feel that their education in Queens experience is becoming devalued over time. How will you, as rector, help to ensure that students are proud to be Queens graduates?
I think it's really important that students know about all the things that they can get involved in here at Queens. I would like to do this, again, by having a sort of resource hub. And one important part of the resource hub would be, how do I get involved? Because that's something that a lot of students, especially first years or second years who no longer have a Don to help them with these kinds of things, oftentimes, they don't know how to get involved. It's also important that students know, have information about how to prepare for interviews and what it's like to be on a club, and when they are on a club or on a committee, how to manage their time so that they can get everything out of their Queens experience, school included. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, Matt. That's a very good question. So what Queens is seeing an influx of students, and now it's time to see that influx of resources on campus. And that means that what we have to do is advocate to ensure that all students are able to access student groups, clubs, resources on campus, as well as ensuring that working together, that we can raise awareness of these various student groups as well. But then as well, in order to ensure that we can be happy as Queens graduates, that we are able to celebrate our education here and ensure that we get the best education by increasing student study space, but as well, if you have mental health if you suffer from mental health issues or have a mental illness, or you are a survivor of sexual assault, that you are able to get that academic accommodation that you need. Thank you.
Thank you for a very important question. The role of the rector, or one of the roles, is standing at convocation and greeting graduates as they walk across the stage. When I stand up there as a rector, I'm looking forward to looking my fellow students in the eye and hoping that they understand the value of the degree that they're getting and the difference between a degree and simply a transcript, which consists of just grades and courses. To me, a degree at Queens is so much more than that, which is why I want to look critically at teaching and learning at the university and understand how students are being affected by the broader learning environment, understanding how physical classroom spaces are affecting learning. Yes, it's fantastic that we have these new buildings and new resources on campus, but we need to understand about what resources and what spaces currently exist on campus and how they can be developed further to enhance the student learning experience. Thank you.
Queens is changing. It's definitely changing. Every year there's 500 more first-year students admitted, I believe, than the year before. And as our community grows, it has to adapt. I think we will be matching, in the future, we'll be matching enrollment growth with resources. But we also need to make Queens students proud that we're an innovative institution. We need to highlight what we're doing there with the resources we're giving students and how we're addressing the needs of the future.
All right, our next question was submitted anonymously. As the third officer at the university, how do you envision your relationship between yourself, the principal, and the chancellor?
Thank you very much, Anonymous, for that question. That's a very good question. And so, as rector, you want to ensure that you're working with all people here at Queen's to ensure that you can enact positive change. And so the relationship that you hold with the principal and the chancellor should be a positive relationship where you have clear, concise communication and where you are able to ensure that you work together to achieve a better student experience together. And that's ensuring that you listen to students, advocate for them, but then as well as educate the students when administration also has important information to provide. So it's a two-way communication, and it also is a very close-knit relationship between all three parties. Thank you.
The way that I envision the relationship is very much a very collaborative relationship, working together with the Chancellor, with Chancellor Leach and Principal Wolf, to find the best needs for students. Obviously, they're experts in their field, and coming into the situation as a student, I consider myself an expert on students and their voices and their concerns, and bringing that through transparency of the office. So for me, it's very much about working collaboratively with them and critiquing them on their ideas and their concerns from a student perspective, because that's ultimately what the role of the rector does and what the role of the rector is supposed to be. It's going and working together with them and the Board of Trustees and bringing forward the views of students to some of those greater and larger issues at the university. Thank you.
I think the first thing to do will be to establish trust. So absolutely going to them and telling them, I'll never throw them under the bus. It's happened before. Rectors haven't always represented Queen students, and 2 rectors ago, 1 had to resign. So definitely trust is very important, but I know that we also won't always agree. So respect would be very important too. And I think students and administrators can disagree on some issues and agree on others. So absolutely having a very collaborative working relationship, but making it clear what student priorities are and standing up for them.
Having a positive relationship with the principal and the chancellor is crucial for any change to be made. It is a two-way street. With that, 2 things in particular that I think are really important that can lead to this being a positive relationship are, as Fergus mentioned, trust, and additionally, the ability to handle confidential information. The principal and the chancellor need to be able to know that the rector can take such information and act with integrity when they're using this information to make decisions. Thank you.
All right, so this was submitted by Stephen Smith. Please explain what you think the issues with the Bader International Study Center, or what's the castle, what would you do about it?
Thank you for that question. That's very interesting. So from my perspective, I think the biggest concern with the CASTLE program is the separation from main campus. Queens is known for having a tight, close-knit community, which if individuals are overdoing the international program, they might feel separated from that greater community. So in order to advocate and address this issue, it's very much about making sure that the office is known through social media to those individuals that are over at the castle, as well as promoting Youth Orientation Week as an opportunity to immerse them back into the main campus Queens community. Thank you.
I have 2 thoughts here. So I was a Gecko this year, and I helped CASTLE students come to Queens for the first time, which is, it's difficult for them, and I think their transition can be improved, as with any orientation week. They don't always feel like they belong in second year because they didn't get to experience what everyone else experienced in first year. So definitely that transition and making sure that they feel part of our community. But also I think student voice needs to be heard at the castle with regards to teaching. I know their courses were changed and there was quite a bit of controversy this year because some courses were eliminated and professors don't teach there anymore. So I think that needs to be brought to light and students need to be heard.
I think that transitioning back into Kingston would be the hardest thing for students that studied at the international Additionally, as rector, I would like to spend time with the Newts Orientation Week and introduce myself and make myself a presence to them like I might not have been when they were in first year. And let them know that I can be a resource for them to help connect them to things such as services that are hiring or clubs that they can be a part of. I also would explore the possibility of having workshops into the fall semester to help transition them back in and make sure they know where everything is on campus if they don't feel that this is adequate in their orientation week. I would look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And I think that Newt's Orientation Week does a fantastic job of addressing the Castle students and really trying to, transition them back into the Queen's community. I've had many friends who've worked for Newt's Orientation Week, and they've loved the experience because not only did they get to meet new students, but they also had the opportunity to introduce them to what Queen's is and our family. But more importantly, what we need to do in order to help with that distance at times is ensuring that students have clear communication as to what resources are available to them, student groups and clubs on campus, as well as ensuring that they can celebrate who they are, because that's what makes us a very good Queen's family, by accepting everyone. Thank you.
This comes from Max Garcia. How do you plan to make sure that the needs of students and small faculties are addressed at all university levels, including trustees?
This is a great question. So I heard specifically from some leaders of small faculty societies that they don't always know how to navigate administration. So I see the rector here as a mentor, a resource that they can go to, because they've been there for 2 years and they know the ins and outs. I've heard from past rectors how they know how to talk to administrators, such as the registrar's office and so on, and they can really help students there. So just always being accessible. I'm in engineering. I know that smaller faculties don't always feel represented, but making it clear that I'm a resource for them and that our voice will be heard in unison and will be stronger that way. So.
To make sure that the voices of smaller faculties are being heard, it's a goal of mine to attend faculty meetings, ideally once per semester. Additionally, I want to foster a relationship with people who sit on this faculty and make sure that they know that their needs are being met. I wish to be an approachable rector, one that people know that they can come to for anything, and that no problem is too big or too small, even if your faculty is a smaller one. Thank you.
So one way in which I plan to make sure that the needs of all students and small faculties are met is by improving the transparency of the office of the rector. And this is, again, by holding open public forums and as well as remodeling the website in order to ensure that students are able to have that face-to-face interaction as well as interaction online. Because that's how you ensure that when you are an advocate for the student to the Board of Trustees, you're listening and providing a clear, concise voice. And listening is probably one of the most important things. So ensuring that you listen when you're having those face-to-face communications is important. Thank you.
Coming from a smaller faculty like Con Ed, I do understand a lot of the concerns that come up with being in a smaller faculty. Personally, for me, I would look to advocate on AMS Assembly as well as SGPS Assembly for those smaller faculty societies at the graduate level and foster a positive relationship with their executives in order to have that open communication so they feel comfortable coming to me to address their concerns, whether it be on a smaller level or at the greater level of the university. With regards to advocating on the ground, with Orientation Week, I'm planning on attending events from every single faculty society, regardless of size. It's very much about bringing myself out to faculty so that they know what the office is like and what I can be and who I can be
their dollars to compete for a single season with students? How will you work to remove financial barriers faced by student athletes?
Thank you very much for the question, Connor. This is this is something that I don't know a lot about myself, not being an athlete, not having any close friends that play varsity sports that need to pay a lot of money. So this is one of those times where I don't have a perfect answer. What I would do is I would speak to athletes and speak to people, to leaders of the teams who know a lot about the financial hardships that athletes go through. With this information, I would speak with administration and speak with the board and the financial committee and learn about the different things that are already being done to help break down these financial barriers and continue to advocate and see what else I can do. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you so much for the question. I believe that yes, all students should be able to access education because education is important. And Queens, well, I believe Queens provides some of the best education in the world. That's just personal bias. But more importantly, again, listening to students and really ensuring that when you listen to them, you're able to advocate and ensure that their voices are heard to administration. That's the most important role of the rector, to advocate for students and listen to students to support them. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Connor. I think this is a very important issue on campus, mostly because student athletes, it represents such a large part of their student experience. Being able to go out there onto the field, the court, or the track is very much an opportunity to get involved within the Queens community and show your pride as a Gale. With regards to specific plans, of course, I'm not very conversant about the main issues of financial accessibility, but finances should never be a barrier when it comes to enriching your student experience. For me, I would try and have conversations with athletic and recreations and advocate for those concerns that have been brought forward. In terms of specifics, I'm not sure if it's financially possible to allow for a grant program or a bursary program along those lines, but it's very important to look forward and see if those are financially available means of solving this financial issue. Thank you.
I know that Queens is a leader in terms of awards, and I think that has come a lot through the Office of Advancement, but there's absolutely no reason to stop here. Accessibility makes the Queens student experience so much better, and not just with student athletes, but in every aspect of student life. I'd prioritize accessibility and definitely work towards more need-based scholarships and so on.
This question comes from our current director, Mike Young. What has been the greatest success and I think I'm supposed to say the least successful, not least unsuccessful, unless he's trying to be clever. But we'll say the least successful thing that the current rector has done.
The greatest thing that I think Mike Young has done is that he's done a fantastic job of supporting students and really ensuring that students have someone to turn towards, whether it's looking for a resource, whether it's looking just to talk to someone. Mike Young has done a fantastic job of that. But where Mike Young has not been as successful is really listening to graduate students. I'm sorry, Mike Young, but it's really important that as rector, you listen to all students, both undergraduate and graduate, so that you can advocate for everyone. Thank you.
I would have to say that Mike's greatest success within the role is simply bringing attention to the office to all students. I remember my first day of Frosh Week, I was ready, and I already knew who Mike Young was because he was already speaking to us. Nobody had to tell me or tell me later in my second year what the office of the rector did because Mike was out there on the grounds telling us all about it. And I look forward to continuing that advocacy by going to students on the very last post was over 74 weeks ago. So it's very much an opportunity that has been missed but can be brought forward into the future, and bringing forward that blog post to keep up having a larger conversation about the concerns and the day-to-day activities of the rector. Thank you.
I think Mike Young's term has seen tremendous momentum being built around the issue of mental health, and it's really picked up, and we're really starting to address it. I also don't think we'd be here if we had an elevated role of office. So he's done a great job. He's made it very accessible. So that's amazing. I'd like to see more detailed context of the issues being brought to all students, and that's a challenge. But I think we'll get farther if we can inform everybody of exactly what we're facing.
Some things that Mike Young has done exceedingly well in the last couple of years. Here you go, Mike. Keep your ego boost. Mike has an ability to put equity at the forefront of all of his decisions, and this is something that he works tirelessly to do, and that I admire hugely. Another thing is that he is a support to everyone, and this is really clear by the chalkboard outside of his office. It's a really simple way of letting anybody that walks through the JDAC know you can come in. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if we've never met before. Come on in and let's have a conversation. Something that I think the rector could do better, or that Mike could do better, is to raise the profile of issues that are on campus, and specifically translate them to students who don't really understand, like I said before, the jargon of what it means to sit on committees or to sit on AMS assembly, and things like non-academic discipline. For students who have no idea what that is, it should be easy for them to figure it out and kind of have like a too long didn't read version of any issue so that students are up to date with what's happening at Queen's. Thank you.
Okay, so that is going to be our last question for tonight. We're going to move to closing statement. Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay. What role do you see yourself playing in altering toxic cultures such as rape culture and binge drinking on campus? It says Adam Grodsky submitted this, but I'm pretty sure it was submitted by Chris Cochran because I was sitting beside him when he did it.
So it can be seen as very difficult to enact general cultural and institutional change at such a large space like Queen's University. For me, it's very much, again, opening up the conversation, talking about binge drinking and rape culture and why it still exists at our university. So it's very much about going to groups that exist on campus that are looking at these issues and giving them the support that they need, and bringing that advocacy from the highlight of the role and office of the rector to really show these concerns. With regards to these ones specifically, there's always an opportunity to promote it during orientation week and to address it during then, as well in the coming months with the review of the recommendations for the non-academic misconduct system, NAM. Obviously, these are going to be large topics that are going to be brought up, so it's very important that we have the conversation at AMS Assembly, SGPS Assembly, as well as the various faculty society
And by leading by example, things like the University District Cleanup the morning after homecoming is a perfect example of the way that we can find a perfect balance between celebrating our school and being stewards of it. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much for that question. And so the role that I hope to play as rector in altering these cultures, these toxic cultures on campus, is by really working with student groups in order to educate ourselves on raising awareness of these issues, starting conversations about these issues, and as well as ensuring that we can, well, unfortunately, I did used to participate in binge drinking on campus, and that negatively affected me big time, and so I can relate to students on this issue as well. And so what we need to do is really ensure that we are able to train ourselves. As a Don, I received bystander training or bystander intervention to address issues, especially when it came to things such as rape culture, as well as working with student groups such as Queens for the Boys. I wish I had known about this in first year, because if I had this in my life, well, it would have been a positive impact, and it would have changed my first year drastically. So thank you very much.
An engaged alumni network is invaluable to the sustainability of Queens. As rector, you are not just an ambassador for students, you are also their ambassador. How will you as a rector engage with alumni about the student experience? This comes from Nathan. Leo? I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
So I think it needs to be a continued priority that we've done a lot with the Reunion Street Festival to make alumni able to engage on more than just some of the more rambunctious traditions of homecoming. I think alumni are a great resource, and we should continue to engage them very well. And I think there should be more opportunities for students to interact with them. I've seen alumni on campus all the time, and they're just a tremendous resource in career counseling and life experience and everything. So that's really one of our greatest strengths, how much students and alumni connect and how much alumni want to give back. So we should not lose that.
By spending the last couple of homecomings at Queen's Pub, it's given me a really, really unique opportunity to interact with alumni and hear some of their stories. As rector, I really wish to continue being able to do this by things like participating in programming during homecoming. The interesting thing about homecoming is that it relies on students' actions and students being responsible. So I will communicate with students in the weeks leading up to homecoming about how special it can be for alumni and for students to get to connect with our alumni network in the hopes of engaging a weekend that we can celebrate our school. Thanks very much for the question.
So the rector has the great opportunity to attend many social functions and events that bring alumni back to the community, but also out around the world. And what this is this is a great opportunity to share the amazing things that Queen's students are doing on campus. And as rector, really just telling the alumni about what we are doing on campus would be a fantastic opportunity to do this. But then as well, I can't do this alone. Encouraging students to be ambassadors out in the community, interacting with the Kingston community, and really making a great social change on campus will also be beneficial in order to ensure that we can, as students, engage with alumni and really ensure that we can create a better family together. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Nathan. I think this is a very important question, mostly because the position of rector really represents area, it's mostly, there already exists a committee where faculty societies discuss fall reunions, and the rector does sit on that. So it's very important that during that committee to support and advocate for the intercommunication between current students as well as students that have graduated in the past years. Then with regards to being actively involved in homecoming, attending events such as the Reunion Street Festival, ritual at Clark Hall, very much about going and immersing myself as rector into the environment of students and alumni and their relations, and then looking at it from a close perspective and understanding what went well and how we can better foster the relationship between students, regardless or not if they're currently attending Queens or they previously attended Queens. Thank you.
I'd just like to mention, many grad students are also alumni, so there could be a two birds with one stone situation. All right, now we're going to get to closing statements for real. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to give a closing statement. We're going to start with Cam and then work our way backwards towards me.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with a personal story about mental health, and I mentioned this before. And last year, I suffered from like one of the worst cases of burnout that I could possibly imagine. There was one day where I went into the office, I opened up my emails, and as soon as I saw the emails, I just broke down crying. I couldn't even look at my friends in the eye without crying. And I had 4 meetings that day, and I couldn't even attend them. I received training during orientation or before orientation week in order to, just try and support others. But in that situation, I couldn't even support myself, and I couldn't even bring myself to walk 20 feet out the door to the residence outreach counselor because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And that's an experience that I don't want anyone to ever experience. I want Queens to really have that support, to have the resources, especially the mental health resources available. The soft floor is good, it's sustainable for now, but it's not sustainable for the future. We need to make sure that Queens students have the resources for mental health. And so I want to really make sure that mental health, we raise awareness, we have the counselors, and as well, just make sure that as Queens family, we can support each other. Thank you.
So as somebody who's a little bit more external to this process, I don't have a lot of involvement thus far in certain committees. I offer new ideas and I offer a fresh look at things. I am able to represent students that are the average student, and I don't mean like, oh, they're pretty average. I'm talking about the statistically average student, one who might not get involved, one who might not be the executive member of a committee, likely ones that aren't sitting here tonight. Their voices matter too. So as rector, it is my priority to make sure that all students are being represented. So this is, the statistically average student, the very engaged student, the graduate student. My ideas are unique. Some of them I share with my fellow candidates. In everything I do, I promise to have equity at the forefront of my decisions. I believe that's the most important thing that any leader can do. So thank you so much for the learning opportunity. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
First of all, I want to thank the other candidates here because they've really made this such an enjoyable experience, and I've learned a lot from them. I've learned a lot from every student I've spoken to, and I think my greatest strength would be in being able to consult faithfully and empathize with every voice, because I've been so many different people in my experiences, and I've never been involved with just one aspect of Queen's life. So I want to be able to represent every voice and build a consensus for a positive future for Queens.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard some pretty interesting answers tonight to some of the questions. I hope you've all been given something to think about, and I hope everyone will show up and vote in this election. I guess you don't have to show up anywhere in particular, just voting's all online. It's very convenient. So thank you everyone for coming out. I'd like to we take a moment to thank all the candidates for Okay, well that brings us to an end. Everybody go home.
Wow, what a show. I hope you guys learned as much as I did. We here from Studio Q hope you enjoyed the broadcast and hope you have a good night. Thanks.